Book of Hebrews. Easy to read version.
希伯来书，易读版本。
Chapter 11.
第11章。
Many people refer to Hebrews 11 as the faith chapter, because it exemplifies the strength of faith by using examples from biblical figures.
许多人将希伯来书第11章称为信心篇，因为它透过圣经人物的例子展示了信心的力量。
It defines faith as the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen, and then illustrates how many Old Testament heroes, like Abel, Noah, Abraham, and Moses, demonstrated unwavering faith in God, even when the fulfillment of his promises seemed distant or improbable.
他将信心定义为所望之事的实底，是未见之事的确据，并透过亚伯、挪亚、亚伯拉罕和摩西等旧约英雄的事迹，说明他们在上帝的应许看似遥远或不可能实现时，依然保持了坚定不移的信心。
The chapter emphasizes that faith is essential for pleasing God, and it invites believers to trust in Him, even when circumstances are uncertain.
本章强调信心对于取悦上帝的重要性，并且鼓励信徒在面对不确定的环境时仍要信靠他。
Faith is what makes real the things we hope for. It is proof of what we cannot see.
信心是对盼望的事有把握，对还没看见的事很确定。
God was pleased with the people who lived a long time ago, because they had faith like this.
古人因有这样的信心而得到了赞许。
Faith helps us understand that God created the whole world by His command. This means that the things we see were made by something that cannot be seen.
我们凭信心知道宇宙是借着上帝的话造成的，所以看得见的是从看不见的造出来的。
Cain and Abel both offered sacrifices to God. But Abel offered a better sacrifice to God because he had faith. God said He was pleased with what Abel offered. And so God called him a good man because he had faith. Abel died, but through his faith he is still speaking.
亚伯凭信心向上帝献祭，比该隐所献的更美，蒙了上帝的悦纳，被称为义人。他虽然死了，却仍然借着信心说话。
Enoch was carried away from this earth, so he never died. The scriptures tell us that before he was carried off, he was a man who pleased God. Later, no one knew where he was, because God had taken Enoch to be with Him. This all happened because he had faith.
以诺因为信而被接到天上，没有经历死亡。世人找不到他，因为上帝已经把他接走了。其实他在被接之前，已经得到了肯定，是一个蒙上帝喜悦的人。
Without faith, no one can please God. Whoever comes to God must believe that He is real and that He rewards those who sincerely try to find Him.
没有信心的人不能得到上帝的喜悦，因为来到上帝面前的人必须相信上帝存在，并相信他会赏赐一切寻求他的人。
Noah was warned by God about things that he could not yet see. But he had faith and respect for God, so he built a large boat to save his family. With his faith, Noah showed that the world was wrong, and he became one of those who are made right with God through faith.
挪亚因为有信心，在上帝指示他未来要发生的事之后，就怀着敬畏的心建造方舟来救全家的人。他借着信心定了那个世代的罪，并承受了因信而来的义。
God called Abraham to travel to another place that he promised to give him. Abraham did not know where that other place was. But he obeyed God and started traveling because he had faith.
亚伯拉罕因为有信心，听到上帝的呼召后，就遵命前往他将要承受为产业的地方。但他出发的时候还不知道自己要去哪里。
Abraham lived in the country that God promised to give him. He lived there like a visitor who did not belong. He did this because he had faith. He lived in tents with Isaac and Jacob, who also received the same promise from God.
他凭信心像异乡人一样寄居在上帝应许给他的地方。他住在帐篷里，与同受一个应许的以撒和雅各一样。
Abraham was waiting for the city that has real foundations. He was waiting for the city that is planned and built by God.
因为他盼望的是一座有根基的城，是由上帝设计、建造的。
Sarah was not able to have children, and Abraham was too old. But he had faith in God, trusting him to do what he promised. And so God made them able to have children.
撒拉过了生育年龄后，凭信心仍然得到了孕育后代的能力，因为他认定赐他应许的上帝言出必行。
Abraham was so old he was almost dead. But from that one man came as many descendants as there are stars in the sky. So many people came from him that they are like grains of sand on the seashore.
所以，从一个垂暮之年的人生出许多子孙，好像天上的星、海边的沙那么多。
All these great people continued living with faith until they died. They did not get the things God promised his people. But they were happy just to see those promises coming far in the future. They accepted the fact that they were like visitors and strangers here on earth.
这些人到死都满怀信心。他们虽然没有得到上帝所应许的，却从远处望见了，就欢喜快乐，承认自己在世上不过是寄居的异乡人。
When people accept something like that, they show they are waiting for a country that will be their own.
他们抱这样的态度，表明他们正在寻找一个家乡。
If they were thinking about the country they had left, they could have gone back.
如果他们想念的是自己离开的家乡，就找机会回去了。
But they were waiting for a better country, a heavenly country. So God is not ashamed to be called their God. And he has prepared a city for them.
然而，他们渴慕的是天上更美的家乡， 所以上帝不以被他们称为上帝为耻，因为他已经为他们预备了一座城。
God tested Abraham's faith. God told him to offer Isaac as a sacrifice. Abraham obeyed because he had faith. He already had the promises from God. And God had already said to him, "It is through Isaac that your descendants will come." But Abraham was ready to offer his only son. He did this because he had faith.
亚伯拉罕被试验时，凭信心把以撒献为祭物。承受应许的亚伯拉罕当时献上了自己的独生子。论到这儿子，上帝曾说，以撒生的才可算为你的后裔。
He believed that God could raise people from death. And really, when God stopped Abraham from killing Isaac, it was as if he got him back from death.
他认定上帝能使死人复活，从象征意义上说，他也确实从死亡中得回了以撒。
Isaac blessed the future of Jacob and Esau. He did that because he had faith.
以撒凭信心指着将来的事为雅各和以扫祝福。
And Jacob, also because he had faith, blessed each one of Joseph's sons. He did this while he was dying, leaning on his rod, and worshiping God.
雅各凭信心在临终之时分别为约瑟的2个儿子祝福，并拄着拐杖敬拜上帝。
And when Joseph was almost dead, he spoke about the people of Israel leaving Egypt. And he told them what they should do with his body. He did this because he had faith.
约瑟临终之时，凭信心提到以色列人将来要离开埃及，并交代要如何处理自己的骸骨。
And the mother and father of Moses hid him for 3 months after he was born. They did this because they had faith. They saw that Moses was a beautiful baby. And they were not afraid to disobey the king's order.
摩西生下来时，他父母见他长得俊美，就凭信心把他藏了3个月，不怕违抗王的命令。
Moses grew up and became a man. He refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose not to enjoy the pleasures of sin that last such a short time. Instead, he chose to suffer with God's people. He did this because he had faith.
摩西长大成人后，凭信心拒绝做法老之女的儿子，宁愿与上帝的子民一同受苦，也不肯享受一时的最终之乐。
He thought it was better to suffer for the Messiah than to have all the treasures of Egypt. He was waiting for the reward that God would give him.
在他眼中，为基督所受的凌辱远比埃及的财富更有价值，因为他盼望的是将来的赏赐。
Moses left Egypt because he had faith. He was not afraid of the king's anger. He continued strong as if he could see the God no one can see.
他凭信心离开埃及，不怕王的愤怒。他坚忍不拔，好像看见了肉眼不能看见的主。
Moses prepared the Passover and spread the blood on the doorways of the people of Israel, so that the angel of death would not kill their firstborn sons. Moses did this because he had faith.
他凭信心守逾越节，行洒血的礼，免得那位杀长子的伤害以色列人。
And God's people all walked through the Red Sea, as if it were dry land. They were able to do this, because they had faith. But when the Egyptians tried to follow them, they were drowned.
以色列人凭信心渡过红海，如履干地，埃及人试图过去，却被海水淹没。
And the walls of Jericho fell because of the faith of God's people. They marched around the walls for 7 days, and then the walls fell.
以色列人凭信心绕着耶利哥城走了7天，城墙就倒塌了。
And Rahab, the prostitute, welcomed the Israelite spies like friends. And because of her faith, she was not killed with the ones who refused to obey.
妓女喇合凭信心善待以色列的探子，没有与那些不顺服的人一同灭亡。
Do I need to give you more examples? I don't have enough time to tell you about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets.
我还要再说下去吗？我没有时间一一细说基甸、巴拉、参孙、耶弗他、大卫、撒母耳和众先知的事了。
All of them had great faith. And with that faith they defeated kingdoms. They did what was right, and God helped them in the ways He promised. With their faith, some people closed the mouths of lions.
他们凭信心战胜了敌国，行了公义，得到了应许，堵住了狮子的口。
And some were able to stop blazing fires. Others escaped from being killed with swords. Some who were weak were made strong. They became powerful in battle and defeated other armies.
熄灭了猛烈的火焰，刀下逃生，由软弱变为刚强，作战勇猛，击退外敌。
There were women who lost loved ones, but got them back when they were raised from death. Others were tortured, but refused to accept their freedom. They did this so that they could be raised from death to a better life.
有些妇女得回了从死里复活的亲人，有些人受尽严刑拷打，仍不肯苟且偷生，为要得到一个复活后更美好的生命。
Some were laughed at and beaten. Others were tied up and put in prison.
有些人遭受戏弄和鞭打，还有些人遭受捆锁和囚禁。
They were killed with stones. They were cut in half. They were killed with swords. The only clothes some of them had were sheepskins or goatskins. They were poor, persecuted, and treated badly by others.
他们被人用石头打死，受威逼利诱，被锯成2截，丧生刀剑之下，披着绵羊和山羊的皮四处奔跑，受尽贫乏、迫害和虐待。
The world was not good enough for these great people. They had to wander in deserts and mountains, living in caves and holes in the ground.
在旷野、群山、山洞和地穴中漂流不定，他们是世界不配有的。
God was pleased with all of them because of their faith, but not one of them received God's great promise.
这些人都因信心而获得赞许，但他们并未得到上帝的应许。
God planned something better for us. He wanted to make us perfect. Of course, He wanted those great people to be made perfect too, but not before we could all enjoy that blessing together.
因为上帝为我们预备了更美的，要叫他们与我们一同得到才算完美。